Hello, everyone. So, for my health activism issue, I decided to look at mental health activism in our country. So, two of the main groups that are behind mental health activism I will be looking into are the National Institute on Mental Health and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Now, both of these are large governmental organizations spanning nationally, and they share an audience of the general U.S. population. The goal for both of these organizations is to have a destigmatization of treatment towards mental health issues and increase the general access to care and treatment for mental health services. Um, so today what I will be looking at is the actual rhetoric employed by both of these campaigns. We will be looking at the logos employed, or the soundness of logic, typically justified through use of facts and statistics. We'll be looking at the way they both use narrative and pathos, creating emotional stories to try to have their audience act based off those emotional or act based off their emotions. And then finally looking at the visual rhetoric used in their actual advertisements and websites, asking ourselves what the sort of picture they paint when it comes to mental illness is. Looking at all three of these categories, I hope to ultimately show to you all how these organizations actually fall short in their ultimate goal of destigmatizing mental health through the rhetoric that they use. Now, so to start today, we're going to be looking at the logos, or soundless logic used by these organizations. So one perfect thing that both of them use is they use a lot of general statements for their sound argument of, do you want to be happy? Do you want your life to improve? Do you want to seek care? These are all questions a lot of people will generally just say yes to logically. Most people just want to be happy. Most people just want to feel better. So, of course, they're logically going to be swayed to this. Then they also use facts and statistics to try and support this sort of argument. And one of the heavy facts that they rely on is going to be percentages of people suffering from mental illness and the number of patients, or the number of hospitals and doctors working on the issue. These stats are meant to show the commonality of mental illness, and they're meant to have people go, oh, this is far more common an issue than I realized, so my treatment of it should change, and that's the way it's supposed to change. However, I feel that this actually backfires in the fact that these statistics, while they teach people the simple fact of commonality, because mental health is still such a scrutinized issue, it's not expressed personally as much. So people aren't really encountering this issue in their personal lives. So we're just be given the fact, oh, it's super common, but then we're not doing anything with it as we're not seeing it common in our personal lives. I'll talk more about this in the conclusion. Then looking at narrative and pathos. So both of these groups use super emotional stories to try and connect to their audience better. First, we will look at the sort of stories used by the National Institute on Mental Health. They have a far more kind of positive use of their messaging in that they tell stories about the struggles going through mental health that we're all very used to, but all their stories tend to end positively with the introduction of mental health treatment, improving their lives, and making it a happy story overall. This, of course, is obviously supporting the messaging of if you introduce mental health care and treatment, your life will get better, your life will improve. Where I find the negative with this, of course, is that it paints a very kind of simple solution to mental health issue. That, okay, well then just go into therapy and suddenly all your issues will be fine, when anyone suffering from mental health knows that it's a long journey and struggle, that it takes multiple steps, and it's not a simple solution like it's being made to seem. Then, with the narrative being employed by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, we see a lot more of those kind of negative stories of people killing themselves or falling to addiction due to their mental health. This, of course, is to stir the emotional response that life is precious, and we don't want people falling to addiction or killing themselves, so we need to act towards mental health. And this, of course, is another great narrative that can be influential in causing people to take action. But however, where I feel it does also fall short is it contributes to mental health stigma and the fact that it causes people to view people with mental illness inherently as prone to addiction or prone to suicide. It automatically makes people just worried about them and not letting them sort of live their lives. Because while mental health or mental illnesses can lead to these issues, it's more of a correlation rather than a causation. So to treat it as a causation can oftentimes be unjust. Finally, we're going to talk about the visual rhetoric employed by both of these organizations on their websites. So this is another thing where they slightly differ in that the National Institute on Mental Health is painting a much more positive story. They're going to have more photos of people smiling, photos of people being happy because care was introduced and now they're feeling better from it. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, on the other hand, they're going to have far more kind of negative imagery, but not negative, more serious imagery. So it's going to be people holding hands in solidarity and people having serious contemplation periods over receiving certain results, painting a much more serious tone for this issue. Both of them, however, do share the visual rhetoric in a lot of medical imagery. You're going to see a lot of doctors in lab coats doing experiments, finding results, and talking to patients. All this visual rhetoric is very much painting the picture that this is a medical issue that needs to be discussed through treatment. It's telling people, hey, you got to see it that way. And then with the National Institute of Mental Health, it's painting the story, this treatment's going to be a good thing, while the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration is saying this treatment is serious, but it's necessary. Where both fall short, however, is I feel it medicalizes the issue of mental health too much. And one of the things with destigmatization of it is a societal thing that we're trying to create a safer space for people to express their mental health issues. So this is something that's not done in the medical field. Which brings me to my ultimate conclusion, which is, as I've displayed through the 3 different categories of rhetoric employed by this group, you can see that they're falling short in this goal in the fact that they're having 2 general applications to such a large issue of destigmatization. Destigmatization is a societally held belief that we need to attack, and they're only giving us individual methods. So while you can change the thinking of the individual, they aren't providing enough groundwork or resources to ultimately tackle such societal issues. So for that reason, I feel that they are ultimately falling short in their goals of destigmatizing mental health issues and increasing access to care. Thank you.